Alright, so I was asked to show how I make my kaleidoscope photography in Photoshop. And so this is what I've just done, but I'm going to start from scratch. Let's see. So first you're going to want to go into Photoshop, obviously, and open a file that you think would look cool, reflected over and over again. For this one, I'm going to do a tree that I saw in DC when we were there after Easter. It was really, really bright green, so I thought it would look cool. So the key to getting a right triangle is obviously a square. So you're going to first begin by converting your image to a smart object and then rasterizing it, which you can do by right clicking and then hitting each of those options. And then next I'm going to crop it into square. So if you hit your shift key while you're cropping, it'll make whatever you're doing a perfect square. So once I get it on there, I want a little more of the trunk. So just kind of pick what you think would be best, or what parts of the picture you like. And obviously you're not going to get all of the picture because we're going to be cutting it in half. So kind of think about that while you're trying to plan out where you're going. Usually I just kind of take a photo and just go with it, and if it comes out, it comes out. And so next I'm going to go up to image, to canvas size, and once it opens up I have it set to inches instead of anything else. And I'm going to make it 100 inches just for the sake of it being so much larger that for the next step you have room to work. So next you're going to do Command T, which is a free transform and allows you to move your object. And if you hit Shift again, you can move your object in increments of 15, which is helpful. And then I'm going to bring a line over from the side rulers or guides and put it in the middle. And next, you're going to want to pick which side you like and which side you think is going to be better. Sometimes this takes me a while because I get upset that I can't have exactly what I wanted, but I think I'm going to go for this side because I want this in it, although I'm going to lose a lot of it. Well, maybe I'll go for this side. I don't know yet. So you're going to apply your transformation, and then, I don't know why I did that. There you go. So once that's done, you're going to crop again, and you're going to, oh my golly, what? Okay. Going to bring it into that line so that what you're left with is a triangle. I'm going to go back to my cursor tool. I'm going to go make my image. Oh, wait, a canvas sometimes. Make sure you're always clicking canvas size. 100 again. I just like to have a lot of room to put things because obviously that allows you to do a little bit more. I'm going to free transform once again. I'm going to go back to having it set which way I think I want to have it set, I guess this way, which really doesn't matter because usually by the end of it things are so abstract looking that they can go anyway. So I'm going to hit enter so that it places it. I don't know why it's being so slow right now. We'll just have to deal with it. And then one thing that I highly recommend having checked is the auto select box, because it allows you, once you have so many layers going, oftentimes I'll have like 30 layers and you're wanting to adjust one and you can't find it. If you have auto select, when you click it, it allows you to move. If you didn't have it on, you'd have to find the layer and then you can move it. This setting helps you be a little more efficient. So I'm going to go out a little bit. I'm going to make it a little smaller by Command T and then taking it from a corner down so that it remains proportional. Next, I'm going to start with just reflecting it over. So you take your layer, you bring it down to this one, which is the copying icon. And so it just sits on top of the layer you just copied. So you can either, if you have the auto select one, you can just grab it and take it. If you don't, you're going to make sure you're on this, on which layer you want to move. And so now you have two identical layers, which you don't necessarily want because you're not going to start getting the matched up kaleidoscope looks. So you're going to free transform again. And then you right click to get to this menu. And so you can, okay. So you gotta go here, and you can use these, which will come in handy later, but for now, you're gonna stick to using flip horizontally and flip vertically. For this case, I'm gonna do the side so that it matches up on this line. So I'm gonna flip it horizontally, and once you do that, I always hit enter so I can see where I'm going. And you wanna try and get them as close as possible. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't work out the best, and usually it's hard to see the point down here, but you can check whether or not your triangles, oh my god, are matched up. Okay, it's lost me. I don't know why it's being so slow tonight. Please, just work. Yes, you can usually see whether or not you're matched up. I'm sorry. Try to start in the middle of your page as best as you can, because sometimes when you go to expand your layers, your kaleidoscope further, you don't have enough room, and you want to make sure you have as much room as possible. And obviously you can make more room come up, but it doesn't come up proportionally on each side, so you might have to keep going where there will be a lot over here, but not enough over here. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but you'd figure that out. And next, since I copied off of the copy of layer 0, I copied off of this one. It's going to be on top of this one. So you can go ahead and move it. It's really preference whether or not you want to keep copying from this one or the one that you just did. I don't name my layers, which I'm not sure if I should be or not. I never have, and I find it too tedious, so I just keep going with whatever it gives me. So since I'm clicked on that one, I free transform, it does that one. So you want to make sure you're on this, or if you're not, you can click on your triangle to get that. And then this one I'm going to flip vertically in order to set it on top. And then I'm going to do another copy. I'm going to horizontally flip it, move it over, and then this is your first piece. I call it the first piece because it's the first intersection or cool little bit you're going to get, and it's this. Obviously, when you add, you're going to get something over here. You're not going to be sure what it looks like here yet or what it looks like here yet. So that's why I highly recommend going past 4 pieces, because if you only do 4, you're only going to get a snippet of what your picture has to offer. If you do more, you're going to see the cool design it gives here and the cool design it gives here. Obviously, there are times where I've gotten going and I think it's going to be something cool and it doesn't turn out to be, because you can't actually ever know, because it's just preference. So for this one, I'm going to flip it 90 degrees so that can give me one to go here. It gets easier as you go to realize what you need, because for a while you're just kind of like, okay, which way is which? And sometimes I find it tedious and sometimes I find it fun. It just really depends on how many parts the picture has. The one I submitted for Trilogy had so many small parts that fit together that were like this, that once you got going, it got hard to make sure they lined up really well, because you want to make sure that the audience can see that you're not just throwing it on there, but it's almost impossible to get it to be perfect, because you'd have to zoom in and zoom out, and once you have so many different pieces going, it just becomes so tedious to work with. I did that the wrong way. So sometimes that happens when I'm not paying attention. So I'm gonna go and delete some of my layers. And I'm not telling you to do this. I just want to show an alternative way that you can go about doing this. So for one, like my trilogy piece, it would have been better for me to make one piece and reflect it a lot of times. And what I mean is that I want to make just this. I want to stick with a triangle like this. So you want to make sure that it is as lined up as you can get it to be. And once you've got that, you're going to hit shift so that both of these are highlighted, blue or gray or whatever that color is. And you're going to merge layers. And it's going to create one layer. And then copy it like you're doing any other time. And then you can horizontally flip it. If it's going to work, I don't know. Oh, well, maybe because I was clicking on the thing. Okay. So this is a little faster alternative, but you have to be careful because if the first two pieces you made don't line up, it's not going to look right. It's going to look messy and it's going to show mistakes over and over and over again, and you don't want that. So then you just have to think about where things are going, and since it has two of the same sides, it's not as hard to line up or to pick which way you're reflecting or moving. And so you can kind of just translate a little bit more than you would. Man, I feel like the geometry, translate, rotate, what is going on? Okay, so we'll just keep going a little bit. Sometimes you should pick which layer you're going to reflect rather than just a random one. Or, I mean, copy which layer you're going to copy, because if it's one here, you can definitely know that it needs to be flipped vertically in order to meet this next piece. Ooh. This is one of those cases that once you get going, you're really glad that you kept going because that looks really cool. Not gonna lie. I'm very excited about that. Okay, so I'm gonna take this one and I'm gonna move it and just give it a horizontal. It's not honestly that hard. You just want to make sure that you have the right triangle type, because if you go for anything that doesn't have at least, or doesn't have a 90-degree angle in it, you're not going to get results that make sense. You'll start to because I started out with putting things in hexagons more so than starting at triangles, or because I kind of go up in a square motion now. The way that I learned it was in hexagons. And if you do that, you're going to have one smaller piece than the other pieces, and to fix it, you're going to have to distort some stuff, and if you do that, your piece isn't going to look as great as it could, and you have the opportunity to make it look a lot better. So I'd recommend making sure your triangles are right. And the way that I do my triangles is the best way that I know how to do them. If you know how to make a 90-degree triangle any other way, feel free to do it that way. It's just the tutorial that I learned how to do most of this from, or that I adapted what I'm doing from, its way of trying to teach you how to make triangles was really confusing and took so much longer than the way I do it. I understand that mine involves a lot of flipping, cropping, making your canvas bigger, but ultimately it helps me get the job done, so I don't really care. Oh my god. Poop. I hit the wrong button, so it's gonna try and give me a text box. Okay. Sometimes, oh my god. There we go. Sometimes things just don't work out. Okay, what needs to happen here? What are you? Okay, so 90 degrees, and then we'll have one here. Sometimes it gets confusing because you're like, which one's the actual triangle? I don't know. And when I was talking about the 90 degrees, I was talking about your first triangle because when you make them a pair, it's not 90 anymore, but it's two 90-degree triangles put together. So you want to make sure that that's the way you're going about doing it. So I'm only going to go this far so that you can kind of see my picture. And I think you probably have the gist of what I'm doing because it's not honestly that complicated. It's just getting used to the buttons you're using. A tip that you might need to use or might want to use or want to know is that undo is Command Z, and that comes in handy a lot of times. So don't be afraid to use that because you don't want to have to fix a mistake later that you could have fixed so much sooner. Sometimes these side pieces you have to make sure you have stuff on screen to match them up to, otherwise you're not going to get them lined up correctly. And it's preference on how far you want to go, how many, I call them sectors. I have my own way of deciding where a photograph stops and how far I go with it. And it's usually dictated by if I want 4 of these, or whatever I have going on. Because sometimes certain things come out cooler than other things. Like, I really like this, but I like the way that looks. And make sure you know what your original piece looks like, because numerous times people will ask you what the original is. And you're going to be like, well, the thing is, I don't remember, so here we are. Okay. I really enjoy doing this because for me, taking pictures is fun, but then to be able to come into Photoshop and to edit them further, it just makes things a little more interesting. Although sometimes I don't feel like editing because it can be too much. Okay, so obviously this isn't centered because when I did my canvas, I didn't start at a perfect place. So if this were something I was definitely going to complete, I'd probably finish at least down here to get 4 of these. But since I really like this, I'll probably finish to like here so that I can get, what would that be, 9 of this part, because I really like that. So I'll finish that at some point. Alright.